Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's career class webinar. We're going to be focusing today on the broader topic of career management, but specifically as it applies to career identity, career literacy, and managing your personal brand and some best practices around that. So just ask you at this point in time, I think it was already an option as you were logging in to mute your audio device, but if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and do that. Also, today's webinar will be recorded should anyone wish to download that at a future date, or for those who might have missed, it'll be available post-webinar. I'd like to take a moment just to introduce myself and our company. My name is Jason Parks. I'm the National Director for Corporate Development at CareerJoy. My role is not only managing our business development initiatives, but I'm also a programs coach. So when I'm engaging departments about coaching, mentoring, and workshops, I'm the first point of contact to kind of triage and assess how we can bring support around an individual or department's needs. So I'm happy to be with you today, and we'll probably be in for 35, 45 minutes at the max. I usually try to keep it on the shorter end and allow you time to go grab that afternoon coffee before you start in for the afternoon. So I'll certainly make time for some Q&A at the end as well. There is a questions or a chat feature at the bottom of the drop down of the GoToWebinar toolbar there, so you can feel free to drop me a question as we go. So I'm just going to give you a quick 60-second introduction to who we are. You may not have heard of our organization before. We are CareerJoy. Our brand is Work Made Better, and we're a 100% Canadian career and leadership coaching firm. And we've been working for the past 14 years. We've coached over 15,000 individuals one-on-one and worked with 500 different employers across Canada. We've got a great network of coaches, 50 plus coaches spread across it's actually now 20 offices in Canada. So that is us, and what we do, the space that we support Canadians in is through career and leadership coaching, everything from career transition, retirement transition, to performance improvement coaching, leadership development or high potential rising star leadership coaching, as well as on the private sector side, outplacement transition for terminated employees, and of course, workshops and webinars. So that's who we are and what we do. And one of our valued creed, our vision statements is really embodied, and not just in print, but it's really true to every person who works with our company. We truly do aspire to help every Canadian find or thrive in a work situation that inspires them to reach their full professional potential, which means believing in the inherent value of every individual as they're committed to supporting their own change, igniting growth, providing wisdom and experience to everyone's advancement in their professional development. Truly, for us, people made better is work made better. So you can see a quick list of just some of the corporate clients we have the pleasure of supporting in the work that we do, ranging all the way across Canada. But of course, we're fairly active within the federal public service as well, and we've done some work for the OPS on top of that. So that's us. That's our start today. So we're going to be looking at career management, and like I mentioned before, the idea behind career literacy, career identity, soft skills development, and personal branding, they all work together under the umbrella of career management. And so you've probably seen a diagram similar to this, or a graphic similar to this. It's pretty popular. The idea being, the success or the tip of an iceberg is what we see, what we all see. But if you get below the surface, you really begin to see what's really taken shape, and what's really been involved, and what the truth is, what lies beneath, I guess, as the saying goes. And so when we look at career management, it can be seen very much like this. I'm sure if you looked at this word cloud, you would see a word for you that triggers what career management or your career management is to you. Take a minute and just scan around and look at a few of the words and see if one of them jumps out to describe your place right now, or your vision, your ideal situation. It's going to be different for each one of us, and that's the goal of our time together today, and that actually is our approach to the coaching and development space, is that we are all unique. I mentioned we've worked with over 15,000 individuals. Well, no two people go through the same program the same way, and so each word is going to say something different to you. Also, in looking at career management, some of you and a lot of Canadians may find yourself thinking this way when it comes to your specific role or what you're doing. Others might feel like this. Some even this. Choices, options. What lies before you? A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. And when we consider our career alongside our peers and alongside other departments, alongside other organizations, other countries, there is certainly an element of truth to this image, that there is a bit of a race, but very much the race is individual, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So take a moment, and as we go into our personal branding segment, think about who you are, think about your personal brand, your professional brand, as we go through this exercise. Here's two images. Really interesting when you think about your personal brand. The picture on the left there, rows and rows and rows, countless rows of options for mustard. It's just mustard, but for some reason we have a lot of choices. So how do you differentiate? How do you stand out? How do you know which one you're going to go with? And so there's an element to our personal brand of standing out and setting ourselves apart so that we are noticeable or noticed in what we're doing. Likewise, the image to the right. I mean, if you've been to Times Square, this is familiar. There's an inundation of imagery. I mean, what do you focus on? What do you hone in on? Because there's just so much noise, so much visual noise. Well, it's very much like that in our careers, and very much like that in competition for careers and leadership and those that you're working alongside. Some very great quotes about your personal brand. Jeff Bezos, the CEO and founder of Amazon, says this: your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. A bit of a generalization, but I think I find some agreement here, because your brand is more than just the work you do, although it very much derives from the work that you do. Others would say your personal brand is more about, how you look, how you speak, how you act. Yes, that's also a part of it, but not the whole picture. It's part of it. When you think about great brands in the world today, Apple, Coca-Cola, Amazon, what might they have in common with career success? There's a few things we're gonna walk through today to kind of demonstrate that. But really, it's these brands know who they are. They clearly walk it out. There's a high degree of self-awareness of their product and their place in the market, and how to communicate to the market, how to represent themselves in the market. And that's what we call literacy. And how they market themselves is confidently and consistently. You rarely see a brand that is unsure of itself and shaky. Typically, that kind of brand would not last very long. And pardon me, a great brand evolves. If you look at just the number of changes and revisions and augmentations to great brands as they move along and evolve, there is a movement, there is a moving target to a lot of branding. So when you think about your own personal brand, can you articulate that? And where do you articulate that? How do you articulate it? Well, there are some obvious places that I think you're probably familiar with. Naturally, in your resume and cover letter, as you're applying for jobs, competing for jobs, definitely as you're preparing for those exams and how you're going to answer them and the approach you're going to take in your responses to interview questions. Absolutely, there's a way to not just answer the question as someone is looking at looking for it to be answered, but doing it in such a way that sets you apart. Of course, your individual job performance, the what you do on a daily basis absolutely matters significantly, because of course that leads right into how you're appraised and reviewed if you have an annual performance review in your role in your department. Many people nowadays choose to have what's called a unique value proposition. This used to be called like your 30-second elevator speech. So it's more than just what you do, it's who are you? And because a lot of times that's what employers are asking, more than just, okay, I see your resume, I see your skill set. Tell me about you. Tell me why you. And so how you present yourself, what your professional reputation says in the work that you've done, and how those speak of you as references, absolutely are ways that you can articulate, many different ways, your brand that sets yourself apart in the mustard shelf. Okay. And obviously, I mean, one that's just that I just put at the bottom there that hopefully goes without saying is LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, you need to be. Don't think for a moment, because you might be in public service, that it might not be relevant to have a presence in LinkedIn. It is massive nowadays. And it's important to be represented well there. Now, saying that though, it's better to have a bad page and the one that isn't kept up than none at all. Because oftentimes your absence from LinkedIn is noticed more than just, okay, they're present, but maybe they don't have a picture or their profile is incomplete. Hey, at least you're there. But what you want to work on is harnessing LinkedIn in your networking, in showing your brand. And you need to do a few things. And we actually have a whole separate webinar just on the topic of LinkedIn. So I'm just giving it 30 seconds. But do yourself a favor, get yourself a professional headshot. Don't use selfies. Don't use casual pictures. This is a professional space. And it's a way for you to project your professional presence. So enough said about LinkedIn, but it certainly is one of those ways that you can take a step forward in managing your brand. So in the sphere of looking at your personal brand, you can't look at that without talking about emotional intelligence and soft skills. And so you may have heard that term before. Hey, soft skills development, what's that all about? Really, here's a great definition of the two. Your hard skills are, of course, this is what the skills that you've learned to perform and execute your specific job, and it's quantifiable. So it's the what you know, it's your expertise. It's either what you've gone to school for, what you've been trained for, what you have experience in that qualifies you on those hard skills. And that's very much a part of the advancement process in your career management. Also, though, more and more these days, and to be quite honest, at the mid to senior leadership levels, yes, the hard skills have to be there, but hard skills alone will not do it. Every employer at the mid to senior level is looking seriously at soft skills and assessments for soft skills, and we'll talk about that later. But the soft skills are skills that are a little less tangible. They're more associated with your traits, your personality. They kind of dictate how you interact with people. It's the why and the how of what you do. And so here's just a few of them. But your emotional intelligence, or your EQ as it's called, that you have your IQ and your EQ. Your IQ is, of course, your skill set and what you've been trained in, but your EQ is that soft skills piece. And there are many of them, and we're going to talk about a few of them today, not all of them, but it is self-awareness and empathy, exercising social judgments, managing your emotional responses and influence, learning how to receive feedback. We're going to talk about that one. Teamwork and problem-solving skills, time management. That's actually another day's activity. Resilience and change management. That's a big one we'll talk about as well. Being self-motivated, having a growth mindset. These are just the most common ones. But if you're at the mid to senior level and you're in a mentorship environment, or you're thinking about advancing your career, these are soft skills that you must possess, or be on the journey to possess. There's never a sense of perfection in any of these. It's all journey, but you'll sense the importance of them as we go. And overarching this whole idea of soft skills is this. You've probably seen this meme before on the right. This quote that everyone is fighting, everyone you meet is fighting a battle that you know nothing about, so be kind. And you know what? It's been helpful, I think, honestly, in society, in our culture, that this has been helpful because, as one of my coaches told me the other day, literally every conversation that you will have in your workspace, well, yay, in life, but really in your workspace, there is a personal, cultural, or diversity aspect to literally every conversation. So now this can be challenging, but this is good because what it means now is that we're being more aware of our effect on others, our effect on how our presence and the work we do and how we do affects other people. But it could be a diversity element of language or race or gender or health or socioeconomic life circumstance. All these things absolutely affect and influence how we respond and react to situations, our behavior and our performance. And so we need to be aware that this is always at play. And so thus the importance of our soft skills in our development as leaders. So what I'll do is I'll take you through just 7 quickly, soft skills that are the absolute must for career growth and career management. And then we'll move into some career identity discussion. So with regards to your soft skills, the first one is the big one, is emotional intelligence. So we just covered a bunch of those. But it really comes down to self-awareness and your ability to self-regulate. Gone are the days when you can, be triggered in the office and just rant off where everyone can hear you. Or maybe that still happens, hopefully not. But really, it's now viewed as completely unacceptable. We need to be leaders. We need to be people who are not only self-aware but self-regulating. Can you recognize and regulate your emotions? Are you in touch with them? There are some tools that can put you in touch with that through assessment and through coaching. Motivation. Do you know your why? Do you know your professional why? A very, very famous a voice in our generation now is Simon Sinek. And if you haven't watched his YouTube video on finding your why, I encourage you to, right after this webinar, go and bookmark it and watch it on your coffee break, watch it after work. It will change how you do what you do when you realize it's about the why. And then what about empathy? Do we have a sense of professional empathy, and do we know how to be in that emotional space with our intelligence? Social skills, building rapport, doesn't mean you have to be everybody's best friend. However, can you build rapport and positive relationships with people in your workspace, in your environment, in your teams, even people that you might not have anything in common with? Do you have the ability to cross that bridge? That's emotional intelligence, okay? The second soft skill is the idea of team dynamic, being a team player. And it really does come down to attitude. Actually, if you want a fun little exercise, take the word attitude and assign the appropriate number to the letter in the alphabet. So A is the first letter, so it's a 1. T is I can't remember what number it is, but you add up all of those numbers, and attitude equals 100%. Kind of cheesy, I know, but kind of a fun little thing you can do at a meeting sometime. But it does come down to attitude. And so whether you're, like it says here, whether you're an individual contributor or you're managing team, you have to work with people. This is just the environments that we work in. Whether we're in meetings or breakouts, you have to be able to bring an approach to team that is positive and that has a positive attitude. It's essential. If you have kind of the lone wolf, I can do this on my own, or it's faster if I do it myself because I don't trust someone else or what have you. That's an older school way of managing teams and working within team, but it really isn't team. Team is working together. The third soft skill, is growth mindset, and this is a bit of a newer concept in career coaching. However, it's becoming more and more important, as you'll see, because you're going to come up against stumbling blocks, roadblocks. You're going to be disappointed. You're going to be in situations that are frustrating to you, no matter what your role. And Someone with a growth mindset would look at that frustration, or let's say the scenario it paints here is maybe there's a failure to meet a quarterly goal, or maybe there's a project you're managing that you just haven't quite got done on time, or you did wrong in some way. A growth mindset would be someone would take a look at the opportunity to identify the strengths and weaknesses and reverse that for the next opportunity, to take it as an opportunity to succeed. Where somebody with what's called a fixed mindset would be just say, throw their hands up and say, well, you know what, I've never been really good at this, get someone else to do it next time, and be negative or casting blame somewhere. The difference between the two is all in the attitude and how you approach that change. Boy, I can't say enough about this one. Number 4, openness to feedback. Because it's the work we do, career and leadership coaching, it is critical to develop this soft skill, and good leaders will develop this early. And it's a critical part of emotional intelligence, because what it does is there's going to be feedback. If you're in any kind of position of influence, well, in any position really, it's as part of either an annual performance appraisal, or if you're in management or higher, there's probably more regular feedback that you're getting. And it's meant to be constructive. You know, someone's not correcting you or feeding back to you because it's a personal issue. It's because at the end of the day, they want your success. Your leader wants your success and wants you operating effectively for you and for the team. And even when receiving feedback that you might not agree with, it's one thing to receive, feedback that is true, but yet bites a little bit. We all understand that can be challenging, and hopefully we can respond. But then you might receive some feedback that you might not even agree with, or that might be partially wrong. Emotional intelligence says, okay, let's stop for a second. Is there truth in this? If there is, okay, I can learn from it. But even though some of it's wrong, I'm going to take a piece away here. I'm going to have a takeaway, and then move forward. Boy, that's a mature response. And the more we can learn to do that, is going to develop resilience in us as we grow in our careers. 5th is adaptability and change management. So this is a reality to business, no matter whether you're private sector or public sector. Change is always upon us. Status quo, stagnation are things that don't really exist anymore. So no matter what your role, what your department, your ability to adapt and have with a positive attitude will be noticed. People will know there's trust and credibility built there. And versus someone who's complaining, someone who's bucking change, someone who's, well, this way works better, we've always done it this way. Your ability to adjust and be resilient to adjust to change is a high functioning mid to senior level leadership gift, and people will know if you have it or not. And ways to develop it are really just to not only begin to accept change that's kind of evolving around you, but coming to the table with ways to thrive amidst change. In fact, we're doing a workshop for a company right now. We're designing it, actually. They're a large private conglomerate, and they've been acquiring companies rapidly because they're doing well, but yet all the companies they're acquiring are wrestling with the dynamic of change. And so, in your world, that could be departments merging or projects merging, and how do you quickly respond and pivot to make things work versus just wrestle with the change. 6 is active listening. This might be a pretty common concept for many of you, but there are some you never know who can still benefit from taking away from this. But really, active listening is really hearing what someone is saying in a meeting or a one-on-one, versus just listening until it's your turn to speak, and you're imagining what you're going to say next. You're kind of putting that together in your head as you're listening and just waiting for your chance to break in, versus actually active listening, where you're hearing what the person is saying. And that might even mean you say, what I'm hearing that you're saying, or correct me if I'm wrong, but are you saying this? That shows active listening. And especially when there's larger projects at play, and instruction and direction, you want to make sure that you are showing that you have the ability to be that kind of a listener. And last, of course, I think it goes without saying, but it is a soft skill, not just a hard skill but it's the soft skill of your work ethic. The time, energy, and effort that you put into hitting and hopefully exceeding your goals in your department and in your work. It's really when you can do the work without being asked. I've got 2 teenage daughters, and we're trying constantly to instill into them, do I really have to tell you to clean your room? Do I really have to tell you to brush your teeth before we leave the house? These are common sense things, kids, but for some reason, we got to continually ask. And maturity and soft skill would be, emotional intelligence would be the ability to put in that work without being asked. And that is going to get noticed. That is going to drive your personal brand to differentiation like nobody's business, because that's going to come out in your 360s. That's going to come out in your referrals for when you're advancing in competitions. Believe it or not, it doesn't just mean you have to be the first to arrive and last to leave. Depending on your department and your situation, that might be the case, but it's more than that. So soft skills can be assessed and coached as well. So it's not just do you have them or don't you, and oh, sorry if you don't have them. No, not at all. Soft skills can absolutely be developed, and there are some tools that can help you measure and be coached to that, your EQ. And so we call those psychometric assessments. You may have heard of the Myers-Briggs or the DISC. There's one called Dynamics. We use one called the Highlands Assessment Battery, which is short for HAB. Sounds really complicated, I know. It's not. Myers-Briggs and DISC and Dynamics are great tools. We use them. We absolutely do. But they're more personality versus soft skills. And so like you would get in a 360, the 360 is going to be what others say about you, whereas a psychometric is going to be what and who you are. Because a Myers-Briggs or a DISC, you can, if you've taken those in the past, you can answer, you could hear and read where the question's coming from and know how to answer the question in a way that the teacher wants to be told, quote unquote, right? I'm sure we've all done that. So how are you really helping yourself by answering assessments like that? So with the Highlands, it measures 19 different abilities, and you don't know what it's measuring in you when it's asking you questions. It's untrickable. And so this is important because as you're looking at things like leadership abilities and learning style and communication style and the ability to problem solve and change management skill set, you want accurate data to be able to be coached. You want to truly, the most self-aware individual says to me, and this happens multiple times, I do about 8 to 10 phone calls a day with individuals looking for coaching. And I'd say half of them absolutely are fully in touch with their blind spots or their weaknesses. They come to me and they say, I know exactly what areas I need to work on, versus some who say, I'm willing. Like I need to find out what those blind spots are so that I don't get, screened out of my next job competition, that I'm actually getting more screened in and passing. So there are certainly ways that there is, and hope for some people, you certainly can pivot off of soft skills development and see some transformation happen. Okay, so that was soft skills. We're going to move into talking about career identity now. Sorry, just grab some water. So when looking at career identity and career search, or looking at your options for managing your career, really there's been historically 2 typical drivers to this conversation. The job description itself, the skill set, what's involved, what am I going to be doing? Leveraged against how much can I get paid, the almighty dollar. And there's nothing wrong with these 2 drivers. We have a 5-fold tool that I'm just going to describe and walk you through as part of our time together today. And these 2 things are part of the 5. But really, as we mature through our careers, we need to have more of a conversation about our career management than just what am I going to be doing? How much can I get paid? I think that's what the generation before us, the boomer generation did well. But and the reason why we do what we do and have the volume that we do of individuals that we work with is because more and more are saying it's not enough. It's not enough. So we're going to look at what's called our career identity tool. It's a proprietary tool that we've developed at CareerJoy. And what it does is it looks at 5 different elements to determine career joy in a way. I mean, that's our brand, career satisfaction. So now you know what CareerJoy means. So we're going to look at 5 different elements, and then we're going to do a small little exercise together just at the end to kind of discover a little more about ourselves and our own career identity. So we're going to look at talents, lifestyle, values, passions, and ecosystem. So quickly said, the career identity tool starts with talent. It starts with the skill set. So this is derived from your education, your background, your skill set, your experience, what you're really, really great at in what you do. Those things that qualify those hard skills, your talents. Okay, you've worked hard on them through education, through advancement, through doing great work. And so they are absolutely a critical part of the alignment for your career identity is the what you do. But also, of course, is the lifestyle, the income. How much am I going to get paid for this? What's the hours? How much do I have to, is it 40 hours, 60 hours, 80 hours? What about location? You know, am I telecommuting? Am I commuting for 2 hours a day? Is it in a part of the country that I want to live in? The work-life balance is involved in that. So that the whole lifestyle element, not just the dollars. So skill set and lifestyle. And then we move to values. And, you know, what's important to you? As we're maturing through our careers, we're hearing Canadians say more and more, boy, I really wish, you know, I felt more at home in my values or beliefs. I mean, it's never going to be a perfect match because we're all human and we all err. However, there can be significant amount of alignment in values with yourself and your own personal values and how they align to the organization or department that you're working in. I just spoke with an individual the other day who is an accountant with the public service, and they were trained and studied as an accountant, but they're 6 years in and realizing, man, I hate accounting, but I believe in public service. So what else can I do? And so they're looking at translating their skills into something that they're passionate about, which they discovered, which was conservation. So they're trying to find a way to get into Parks Canada and translate their skill set because of a value and a culture alignment. But if you don't have a perfect alignment, is there a degree of misalignment that's worth settling for? Again, it's not going to be a perfect world, perfect scenario, but there can be some alignment that does agree. And so finding that out for yourself in what you value is important. And then, of course, your passions. You know, do you get joy out of what you're currently doing? Does it align with what you're passionate about in your life? We all have to work. We all have to survive, so we all have to work. But are we thriving? And it's really just looking at passions helps you recognize the difference between the work I have to do and do I enjoy it? Am I thriving in it? And a very popular expression that's come from one of our coaches who does a lot of our coaching at the government level is work for passion, not pension. The pension is the benefit. The pension is the cherry. But let's work for passion, not just retirement, where you kind of cross your fingers, hold your breath, and kind of bear it until the end. You can enjoy what you do or find satisfaction in what you're doing. And lastly, the 5th piece of the career identity tool is looking at the environment or the ecosystem that you're working in. So that your position, your department, is it a best culture fit for you? In the environment that you're working, is there opportunities for advancement? Is continual learning encouraged? You know, is affirmation or recognition practiced? Basically, is it a healthy, thriving space, or unfortunately, as is the case when we do hear from our clients who are wanting transition, they're in a toxic environment, whether it's team around them, just the banter in the office, the gossip in the office, the backstabbing in the office, the whatever it is, it's toxic, or it's limiting. There's really no place, they've maxed out, there's really no place to go. So looking at the ecosystem as well. So looking at those 5 areas, I want you to grab a pen or a pencil right next to you right now and a Post-it note or a piece of paper to write on. And what we're going to do is you're going to, looking at these 5 elements that I just mentioned, talents, lifestyle, passions, values, and ecosystem is you're going to assign a number score to each one of those categories between 1 and 10. And 1 being on the low degree of satisfaction, and a 10 being really satisfied, right? 1 being low, 10 being high, 1 out of 10 for each of those 5. And I'm just going to give you 10, 15 seconds to go down that list and do that for yourself and make note and then add it up. We'll just give you a few seconds to do that. So what are you good at? What's your talent? What kind of lifestyle do you enjoy? The work-life balance, what does that look like? How do your values align? And are you enjoying or getting some passion or excitement about what you're doing? And then what about the environment, the culture, the fit? Is that the best space for you? Okay, so now that you've added it up, our grid is at the bottom there. If you're above 40, you have what we would call CareerJoy. You have a great deal of satisfaction in what you're doing, but there's still probably some evolution for you. If it's not a perfect 50, there's probably still some room to ask yourself, well, how can I be evolving? How can I be growing still to achieve a greater level of satisfaction? It could be being in a position of helping others or just taking a next step for yourself, challenging yourself. If you're between 30 and 40, possibly there's some changes that you can make that can help you adjust to maybe realign or recompass to seeing yourself enjoy and seeing yourself have a greater sense of overall career identity. And if you're under 30, you might be in a challenging, some might say unacceptable situation where you might be considering, okay, there's definitely some catalyst to change coming for me. I can't continue to do this, and I need options. And that's just a reality. Unfortunately, we're imperfect beings and work in imperfect systems, and so there's realities to that. And so if you're under 30, there's certainly some help and hope for you, which we can talk about offline. But this is a really unique tool. This is a really neat tool. Now, this is actually a day, an hour and a half coaching session usually that we go through with our clients. We just did it in 5 minutes, but it's certainly interesting. And if you're surprised by your number, it gives you some thought to take away. So in looking at managing your career, this is just a great quote from John Maxwell, who is a coaching guru, a leadership development specialist. Don't just take the agenda that someone else has mapped out for your life. Yes, you have to work, and yes, you probably have to work for someone else, but you can have a massive degree of influence and control into what that looks like. And so the question we tend to ask our clients and people in your position and looking at this theme and this topic is, when it comes to your personal brand and your career management, your career literacy, are you managing your career, or is your career managing you? Put another way, your career isn't something that happens to you, right? It's something that you want to be able to lead out in, take control, take ownership, and steward yourself versus it just happening upon you. And you know the difference. You probably know the feeling of being in both spaces. And so there can be some really involved goal setting, short and medium and long-term goals that you might have for your career that you can begin to take away. And what I would encourage you is to just start with your daily rhythm. Start with your, a lot of times our mornings are pressed for time. We're rushing out the door. We have obligations to family and travel and whatnot, but really take moments in the morning, develop a rhythm of motivation and learning for yourself and reaching out for resources to kind of start your day off with a bit more a sense of control. And I think you'll find your stewardship of your career begin to take a next step. Because this is the question that we like to kind of segue with is, in that self-awareness and where there's a need for growth. Hard question to ask, eh? My wife and I, a number of years ago, took a marriage course. And one of the questions was turn to your spouse and say, what's it like to live beside me? And, I'm sure some of you would maybe be scared of answers or want to hear answers, but it's a really transparent question to ask because we're afraid of, either affirmation or rejection. And so that takes us to the learning environment. And so your own learning and development, what does that look like? Have you been through mentoring or coaching before? Are you presently going through it? I just have a few quick thoughts before we close things out today. From our perspective and the work that we do and how we like to encourage individuals in their mindset as they start a mentoring process or a coaching process is don't just enter it not thinking you're blind to what's going to happen or you're ignorant of what's going to happen. Actually, you have a fair bit of control in determining this environment. And so make some goals, set a plan, be very intentional about your key learning outcomes, your goals and objectives. Engage with active listening. We talked about that. So as your coach is guiding you, your mentor is guiding you, or even your manager is giving you instruction, be active and mirror back. It shows engagement. Third, be dedicated to your own success. You really do get what you put in. It really, really is true. It's not something that happens to you. Again, like I said, is being dedicated to your own achievement, to your own success. And take some engagement with and responsibility with your surroundings. You know, what you're doing, what we are all doing in our careers is way more than a job. You know, I think our parents' generation, it was just the post-war generation was all about, you know, surviving, get a job and just survive. And nowadays we have such resources, such great innovation, such great ways to access learning, development, coaching, mentoring, advice, support within our careers, that if you fully engage it, you'll find it is way more than just a daily grind. And of course, risk. Be willing to step out of your comfort zone. Do something that's a little challenging for you, that you're a little scared of. I've done this year. For myself, I'm a musician. I play the guitar, I play the bass guitar, I sing, and I've always wanted to play the drums. I've got so rhythm, and I was just absolutely terrified because when you play drums, you honestly have to be doing 3 different things simultaneously, and that's not easy. But I gave myself to the process, and I got a teacher. I watched YouTube. I got a set of drums, and man, do I love it. And I'm getting not too bad at it, but it was way out of my comfort zone. But I'll tell you what it's done is it's opened up my receptivity to new things, to change, and to being okay learning again. I guess that was my next point. I was curious. I had a curiosity for this. I've already talked about the receiving feedback. Part of the soft skill, but absolutely in the mentoring process, you will show tremendous maturity if you approach learning and approach feedback with, where is there truth in here for me? Definitely stand up for yourself and defend if there's untruths and things that just are kind of setting themselves against you, by all means, but really approach it. Is there something for me to learn here? Even if it's just in the person's delivery of how they're giving you feedback that you don't agree with, there can be some help for you there. And overarching mentoring and coaching. Now, this is more of a business statistic, but I thought it would be helpful to see because, you know, coaching and mentoring has gone through a real great and important shift in the last, I would say, 10 years. It used to be coaching was viewed as, or mentoring was viewed as, something's wrong with Jason. Let's get him coaching. Let's get him mentoring. Oh, poor Jason. Hope he'll get better soon. Poor guy, right? Whereas now coaching and mentoring is seen more of a status, like, oh, you've got an executive coach. Okay. Like having a personal trainer at the gym. There's been a stigma shift, which is really healthy because when you look at the results and this is just, again, a business statistic, but this is absolutely true now through Metrics Global LLC. In the study, coaching now has a return on investment of almost $8 for every dollar spent. That is massive. If you're in business and you know analytics and you know ROI, that is massive. And not only that, but training and coaching one-on-one has an 86% increase over just courseware or training alone through going to a workshop or seminar. The one-on-one has significant increase. So is there value for you in what you're doing, in your role, in your department? Absolutely. And there's dollars or value associated with that. So hopefully that removes some of the stigma. If you're hesitating on getting mentoring or coaching of any kind, you can actually see there's some tremendous value there. And I'll just share one little client, Rave, from the work that we do, so you can see that there really is value. Even though this is a federal public servant, I wanted to show you one private sector statistic, and then of course some feedback from a client we work with. And they were preparing for an EX1 job competition. They were an EX-1 and an acting, but they had to compete for their job. And this particular individual, Mary, was very nervous and had a high degree of stress around going through her job board after she was screened in. And we did some coaching around interview preparation, mock interviews, and posed some questions as part of that coaching. And her comment here was that her new ADM told her that not only was she successful in winning the competition, but that she beat the other candidates by what she called a country mile. And so there's tremendous value in working with a mentor, working with a coach on development for yourself. So I'm going to leave you. We're just closing in. I've got 2 more minutes here. I just wanted to leave you with a little bit of motivation, if I can. This helped me early on in my career. I've been in business development for almost 24 years, and this I discovered about 12 years ago, maybe even 15, and it changed how I do what I do. So just take a moment and read this quote. And I'll read it aloud if there's any dialed in by phone. Now, this is American, of course. So at 211 degrees, water is hot. At 212 degrees, it boils. And with boiling water comes steam, and with steam, you can power a train. Isn't that interesting? 1 degree of difference between water just being hot and then boiling to produce results enough that can power a train. That's by Sam Parker. He wrote a book called 212 Degrees. It's a motivational book, and in fact, I would encourage you to download that book or buy that book. So the idea being, with that the 1 degree of effort in business or in life, that separates good from great. And this is all about your managing your personal brand. This is where you're looking at the mustard shelf, and that little bit of differentiation, that 1 degree of differentiation, will be what separates good from great. 1 degree equals exponential results. So my question to you as we close out today is, where could you turn things up? 1 extra degree. No one's asking you to change the world in a day with your job necessarily, but there is another gear. Do you have another gear in managing your career and looking at what you're doing? Think about that for yourself, because I think we all have it. I think we all have that extra degree in one form or another. And I think we're already doing it with many things that we're passionate about as individuals, whether it's family or sports or religion or what have you. There's something that each one of us is passionate about, and we have that extra degree. Let's apply that to our career. Let's apply that to our career satisfaction. Steve Martin said it best. This is great for personal branding and managing your career. Be so good that they absolutely can't ignore you. I want to thank you for your time today. I know it's over a lunch hour and there's many other things you'd probably rather be doing, although I think it's raining across Ontario today, so maybe there wasn't too much to do outside. So I appreciate your time. I hope this has been helpful. Again, this has been recorded, so for download at a future date. For anyone who would like just more information or just some advice, we offer every Canadian a free 15-minute phone call just to talk about what they're going through in their career management. And so if you'd like to avail yourself of that, there's a no obligation 15-minute phone call. I'm more than happy to speak with anyone. I'll just leave my number and email up at the bottom for a minute or two, and then we will close out the broadcast. But thank you again. I hope that you found it helpful, and wish you a great rest of the day. Just got a question asking if we are done. Yes, we are done. Thank you so much for your attention today. We're closing out the broadcast, but I'm just leaving up the screen in case anyone wanted to copy down my email and phone number. But yes, we are done. Have a great rest of the day.